I want to describe a feeling and I want you to tell me honestly if you recognize it. It's late, you're on your phone, you're scrolling, and you see it. A classmate just posted about their new posting, or a coursemate just announced they got into a fellowship, or someone from your intake just shared something, an achievement, a milestone, a move forward. And for 1 second, you feel happy for them. You genuinely do. And then a second later, something else comes up, something quieter, something you wouldn't say out loud, a small voice that asks, why not me? Am I behind? What am I doing wrong? Why does everyone seem to be moving forward except me? Now, you put your phone down when that voice comes up. You try to shake it off. You tell yourself you are being irrational, that you should be happy for them, that your time will come. But the feeling doesn't fully leave. It doesn't fully leave. It just goes quiet, and of course it sits there. So if you recognize that feeling, if you do, you are not alone. You are not small-minded if you're able to recognize that voice. You are not a bad person, of course, and you're just human. You're just human. That is what you'll expect from human being. And you're living inside one of the most comparison-heavy professional cultures that exist. That feeling has a name. And today we are going to talk about it honestly, you're going to talk about it openly, and you're going to talk about it practically. Because until we name it and understand it, it will keep running in the background. It will be running quietly, shaping your decisions, quietly eroding your confidence, quietly keeping you from fully committing to your own path. And that is too high a price to pay. Now, welcome back to After Campus series, and this is episode 5. And if you have been with us all week, thank you. We have covered a lot of ground. In episode 1, we covered the gap that training left in your professional preparation. In episode 2, we covered identity and who you are beyond your degree. In episode 3, we mapped out the full career landscape, clinical to non-clinical to hybrid. And in episode 4, the skills your training built that you are not or you are undervaluing. Now, today, we close week 1 with something that is or ties all of it together, because all that self-knowledge, all that clarity about who you are and what you are capable of gets and undermined every single time you pick up your phone and measure yourself against someone else. So today we deal with the comparison trap, where it comes from, why it is especially powerful in healthcare, and what it is actually costing you, and how to step out of it, not perfectly but consistently. Now let's start. I want to tell you about 2 people who are in the same intake, same university, same course. Let's call them Aisha and Grace. 2 people, and who will learn a lot from their story. Now, Aisha was the kind of student everyone noticed. Confident, vocal in tutorials, quick with answers, and she seemed to move through medical school with a certainty that others envied. First in her class in second year, selected for a research assistantship in 4th year, always seemed to know the next step before anyone else had even thought to ask the question. Now, from the outside, Aisha looked like everything was falling perfectly into place. Now, on the other side, Grace was different. She was quieter, steady rather than flashy. She was not first in her class. She was not selected for the research assistantship. So she moved through medical school at a pace that felt to her frustratingly low or slow. She watched Aisha. She watched her a lot, and every time she did, a familiar feeling settled over her. She is ahead. I should be where she is. What is she doing that I'm not doing? And that feeling drove Grace, but not always in a good direction. she started making choices based on what Aisha was doing. So she applied for opportunities she wasn't passionate about because Aisha had applied for the same opportunities. She changed her area of interest twice, not because her interest had genuinely shifted, but because she saw Aisha moving in a different direction and panicked. She started performing for an audience of one, an audience who didn't even know she was watching. Now, years later, I spoke to both of them, and what I found was interesting. Now, Aisha, who had seemed so certain, so ahead, told me that she had spent most of medical school terrified that people would find out she didn't actually feel as confident as she looked, and that she had been performing certainty to mask anxiety, that she had chosen her specialty not because she loved it, but because it was the most prestigious option available at the moment, and that by the time she realized it wasn't right for her. She was already 3 years into it. Now, Grace, the one who had always felt behind, told me something different. She told me that the turning point in her career came the day she stopped watching Aisha, the day she sat down and asked herself, maybe for the first time, what do I actually want? Not what Aisha had, not what the top students were doing, what she, Grace, specifically with her specific values and strengths and vision, actually wanted. And the answer that came surprised her, of course. It took her in a direction nobody around her had gone, a direction that from the outside might have looked like falling behind, but that turned out to be exactly where she needed to be. Now, Aisha and Grace were both caught in the same trap, just from different sides of it. One was being watched and one was doing the watching, and both were being quietly distorted by it. That is the comparison trap that I want to talk about today, and it does not care whether you are first in your class or you are last. It finds everyone. Now, comparison exists in every professional environment. It does. But I want to make a case for why it is particularly acute in healthcare, because understanding why the trap is so strong is part of understanding how to get out of it. Now, first, medical training is built on ranking. From the moment you enter clinical school, you are ranked. Exam results posted, grades compared, rotations evaluated, class positions are assigned, and so from very early on, your brain is trained to ask, where am I relative to everyone else? That is not a character flaw. It is not. That is a conditioned response to an environment that rewards ranking. Now, the problem is that the ranking mindset doesn't stay in the exam hall. It follows you everywhere, into your career decisions, into how you read, peers' achievement, into how you feel about your own progress. Now, the system built this in you, and then nobody helps you to unlearn it when it stops being useful. Secondly, the path looks linear, so any deviation feels like you're falling behind. In medicine, there is a visible sequential path. Now, student, you move to intern, you move to medical officer or a pharmacist or a dental officer, to a specialist, to a consultant. And because that path is so clearly defined, any variation from it feels like failure. So if your peers are interning and you are still waiting for a posting, you feel behind. If your colleagues are starting specialist training and you're still at medical officer level, you feel behind. If someone from your intake is publishing research and you haven't started, you feel behind. And here is the truth. That linear path is a construct. It is one possible route through a landscape that actually has dozens of routes. And measuring your progress on a path you may not even be taking is like measuring how fast you're driving by looking at the speedometer of a different car going in a different direction. It tells you absolutely nothing useful. Now, thirdly, is a social media collapse the privacy of everyone's journey. Now, a generation ago, you knew what your classmates were doing because you are physically in the same space. You had natural limits to how much comparison was possible. But today, you have a real-time feed of every achievement, every milestone, every announcement from every person you have ever studied with. And that feed is not neutral. It is curated. Now, people post the highlights, the acceptances, not the rejections. The postings, not the waiting period. The fellowship, not the 12 applications that came before it. And so your brain, which is already conditioned to rank, is now ranking itself against a highlight reel, against the best moments of other people's stories with none of the full context. Now, with that, it finds itself wanting every single time. Fourth, healthcare culture stigmatizes asking for help. That is what it does. So nobody talks about the struggles that come in that particular space. So if comparison is causing you anxiety, if you are quietly unraveling under the pressure of watching others move forward, healthcare culture makes it very hard to say that out loud because you are supposed to be strong. You're supposed to be composed, to be certain. And so the comparison happens silently. It happens in private, in the middle of the night with a phone in your hand. And because nobody talks about it, you assume you are the only one feeling it. Now, which makes it worse? It makes it, in fact, much worse. And I want to be specific about what the comparison trap is actually taking from you. I want to be specific with that because I think if you can see the cost clearly, you will take it more seriously. Now, the comparison trap, it is costing you clarity. It is costing you clarity. So when you're focused on what other people are doing, you cannot hear yourself think. The noise of everyone else's journey drowns out the signal of your own. And so you make decisions from a place of reaction, responding to what you see around you rather than from a place of intention where you are moving toward what you actually want. And reactive decisions rarely take you where you actually need to go. Secondly, it is costing you time. Now, the mental energy that comparison consumes is not free. Every hour you spend measuring yourself against a peer is an hour you are not spending building something. You are not developing something, resting, recovering, thinking, creating. Now, the comparison is not just emotionally expensive. It is a time tax, if you look at it that way. And it is one you cannot afford when you're trying to build a career from scratch. Thirdly, it is costing you confidence, and in a very specific way. Confidence at its core is the belief that you can handle what is in front of you. It is built through experience, through action, through showing up and surviving. But comparison short circuits that process because instead of building confidence through your own experience, you are constantly measuring your internal state against someone else's external appearance. And that comparison will always make you feel smaller because you are comparing the fullness of your inner life, your doubts, your fears, your uncertainties against the surface of someone else's story, against only what they are willing to show you. That is not a fair fight. It's not at all. And you will never win that particular fight. And perhaps most importantly, it is costing you your path. Now, every time you make a decision based on what someone else is doing, you move slightly away from your own direction. Every time you do that, you move slightly away from your own direction and slightly towards a path that was never really yours. Now, those small variations compound over time. And one day, you look up and realize you're somewhere you never actually chose. Not because you failed, but because you kept correcting your course based on someone else's compass. So how do you actually break free of this? How do you actually break free of this? Because knowing the trap exists doesn't automatically free you from it. I want to give you 5 things, not 5 motivational ideas, but 5 practical moves that you can take to break this. Now, first, define your own metrics. The comparison trap is most powerful when you have no personal definition of success, because when you don't know what success looks like for you specifically, you borrow someone else's definition by default, and their definition is shaped by their values, their background, their goals, none of which may have anything to do with yours. So the antidote is this: write down in concrete terms what progress looks like for you, not for a generic medical professional, for you specifically. What does a good year look like given your specific goals? What does meaningful growth feel like in your specific context? What are the markers that tell you, not your peers, not your family, not LinkedIn, that you're moving in the right direction? When you have your own scorecard, other people's scorecards lose their power over you. Secondly, I want you to audit your social media consumption, and I want you to audit honestly. I'm not going to tell you to delete your social media. That is not realistic. And honestly, used well, these platforms can be genuinely valuable for professional development. But I want you to be honest about how you are using them. Are you going onto LinkedIn or Instagram or Twitter or X to learn, connect, and engage? Or are you going there to check where everyone else is? Those are fundamentally different activities. And if it is the second one, if you find yourself finishing a scroll feeling worse than when you started, that is information. Practical step to take: set a specific time limit for passive social media consumption. Use the platforms, but use them with intention. Go there to give, to post, to comment, to connect, not to consume and to compare yourself against those that you see on social media. Thirdly, replace comparison with curiosity. And this is a mindset shift that I have found genuinely transformative. When you feel comparison rising, when you see someone's achievement and feel that familiar sting, instead of asking, why not me? Try asking, how did they do that? Not competitively, but genuinely. What decision did they make? What decision did they make? What did they build? What can I learn from their path that might inform mine? Now, curiosity is generative. It turns someone else's success into a resource for you. Comparison is corrosive, very corrosive. It turns someone else's success into evidence of your failure. Now, same trigger, completely different response. And you get to choose which one you practice. I want to go to the 4th step that you can take, and that is finding your reference group deliberately. Find your reference group deliberately. Not everyone around you will be a useful reference point. The classmate who is 3 years older and had a head start. The peer who had connections you didn't have. The coursemate whose family background opened doors that weren't available to you. Comparing yourself to these people is not just painful, it is statistically meaningless. Now, the variables are too different. Instead, find the people whose circumstances are actually similar to yours. Same starting point, similar resources, similar timeline. And compare yourself to where you were 6 months ago, not where someone else is today, because that comparison is honest. It shows you real growth, and it is the only comparison that actually tells you something useful. Fifth, I want to move to the fifth step, and the fifth step is to talk about it. Now, this one is simple and difficult at the same time. Now, find one person, one trusted person in your life. Could be a friend, a mentor, a colleague who you know is experiencing similar things, and say it out loud. I've been struggling with comparison lately, or I keep feeling like I'm behind and I can't shake it. Just say it, because the comparison trap feeds on silence, on the private, isolated experience of feeling like you're the only one. And the moment you say it out loud to someone who genuinely hears you, it loses about half its power immediately. Not because the feeling disappears, but because now it is a shared thing. And shared things are always easier to carry. I want to be honest with you. I have sat exactly where you're sitting. I've done the midnight scroll. I've seen an announcement, someone posting an achievement, a milestone, a move forward, and felt that exact combination of genuine happiness and quiet devastation. And I've made decisions, real career decisions, that, of course, were shaped more by what I saw other people doing than by what I actually wanted. And some of those decisions took me time to undo. And the moment that changed things for me was not a dramatic one. It was quiet. When things changed, it was quiet. It wasn't a dramatic one. And I was sitting with a mentor, someone I trusted deeply, and he said something that I have carried since. He said, you cannot run your race while you're watching someone else run theirs. At some point, you have to look straight ahead, not because their race doesn't matter, but because yours does too. You have to look straight ahead. Your race matters as well. Your race matters. Your timeline is not a failure because it doesn't match someone else. Your path is not wrong because it doesn't look like what everyone around you is doing. Now, the most interesting careers I've seen in healthcare, the professionals doing the most meaningful, most energizing, most impactful work are almost never the ones who followed most obvious path. They're the ones who eventually got quiet enough to hear themselves think and then had the courage to go where that thinking led. I want that for you. That is episode 5 of After the Campus series, and that is the end of week 1. We started this week, the series in this week, the 5 episodes in this week, talking about the gap in your training. We moved through identity, career mapping, transferable skills, and we are closing with this, the comparison trap, because all the clarity in the world means nothing if you keep measuring it against someone else's ruler. So before you go, 2 things I would like to ask of you. First is to go to the comment section. One question: have you ever made a career decision based on what someone else was doing rather than what you actually wanted? You don't have to be specific, but I want to create space for this conversation here, because the more we talk about it openly, the less power it has over all of us. The second thing is about the next episode. That is the next batch of 5 episodes, what I call week 2 of After Campus. It begins in the next episode, and it is tomorrow, of course. And I think will be the most immediately useful for the largest number of you watching. And we are going deep on the pre-internship period. The pre-internship period, that 12-month gap or more between graduation and internship that the system gives you with absolutely no instructions. Now, that episode is called You Just Graduated, Now What? And it is as honest, as practical, and as specific as I can make it. So if you are in that period right now, or you know someone who is in that period, make sure you are subscribed and notifications are on, because that episode is going to land differently. Have a good weekend. This is Dr. Libea Bethwell. See you in the next episode. And this is After Campus series.